In this lesson, we will learn how to draw the neck. First, it's important to understand certain features and behaviors of the anatomy underneath the surface. With a better understanding of these details, we can more successfully draw a more believable neck. Let's examine an anatomy study of this drawing. I'll go ahead and expose that layer. From the front view, there are so many layers of muscles underneath the surface of the neck. We won't go into all these muscles specifically, but it's important to understand the behavior of 3 muscles in particular. Now, because of this, I've gone ahead and broken up a separate layer, one just for the study of the anatomy that's important for artists to see. And I'll go ahead and highlight these muscles as we go. And here we have the most obvious muscle right in here. This is the sternocleidomastoid. It attaches to the mastoid process just behind the skull. I'll go ahead and highlight that part right in here. And it comes all the way down. It meets up with the clavicle and the sternum right down here. So go ahead and highlight that. Right in there. Alright. Now what this muscle is in charge of is when the neck is turning, it's actually being the one to pull. The opposite end is pulling the head in that direction. And it's also more obvious to see on the opposite end that's facing us will be bigger. And it's also being exposed while it's being turned or while it's being flexed. Alright, so the second most obvious is the levator scapulae right in here. I'll go ahead and highlight that. Kind of right into here. Now what this does is it's exactly what it's named for. It lifts up the scapula in the back. It attaches to the inside corner, the innermost corner of the scapula on the back side. Now I won't go ahead and draw in all of the muscle obviously because it's kind of coming around many different layers of muscles, but we'll go ahead and highlight what we can see. Alright, now this muscle is in charge of defining the shape of the neck, and also if the person's overly developed this muscle, you'll see a little bit of a bulge in men right in here, especially men because they really develop the muscles in their neck sometimes. Alright, now this muscle is mostly obvious when we're shrugging our shoulders. You'll see a little bit of a flex in there. Not when we're lifting our shoulder to our ear from an angle, but we're lifting it up vertically. That's when this muscle comes in and actually pulls it up. It also causes a little bit of a fold in between the next muscle we'll talk about. This next muscle is the trapezius. It's shaped like a trapezoid, which is why it has the name. And what it does is it's attached to the center of the back, on the back side, and it comes all the way up the back of the neck, and it wraps on either side of either shoulder. It kind of wraps around. Alright, I'll go ahead and highlight that really quickly. It comes around here. It attaches to the center underneath the deltoid. It attaches over here to the pit of the shoulder, and this other part kind of comes down and attaches to the second rib down here, but we won't see that underneath the surface. The main part we'll see is right in here. And when we get really stressed out or tense, we'll feel a lot of tension in these 2 muscles in particular, but especially right in here. When we have a sore neck, we'll massage that muscle because what it is not only controlling the back, but it's also controlling or lifting and supporting the weight of the limb on either side. I'll go ahead and highlight this side too. What it does is it's holding or supporting the weight of the arm, as well as when we lift our shoulders up. There's a lot of deformation going on here. We can rotate our shoulders in mostly all directions, and this is also taking part in that process. It not only defines the shape of the shoulders, but it also defines the fold in the neck and the overall curve of the neck. Alright, now if I were going to hide the anatomy layer, you can see even in our drawing here, these muscles are very obvious from the front, from the surface. I'll go ahead and hide that really quickly. You can see right in here the sternocleidomastoid coming around, and it causes a little bit of a shadow right in there. And also right in here the levator scapulae is folding over and causing a pinch between it and the trapezius. Alright, so let's go ahead and study the back of the neck. The back of the neck has its own different characteristic. You won't see too many muscles from the back side. Here we have a male neck, and it's more defined, so it's a little bit easier to see the deformations in here. Here we have the trapezius. Again, we have the layers broken up separately. I'll go ahead and select that one. Trapezius comes and it meets up with the head, and it comes all the way down, again following the shoulder line on both sides. And what it does is it's meeting up and it's kind of separating right in the center and wrapping around the 7th vertebrae, which is causing this little bulge in here. right around here, and it comes all the way down to the center of the back, and it meets up with the scapula. I'll go ahead and expose that really quickly. If this is our scapula right in here, this is where it's going to meet up, and it's going to be the shape of a trapezoid. Alright, so if that's really defined, you'll see more of a bulge in here. It might even come over the levator scapulae. You might not even see it because it's kind of tucked in there. But what you will see, the second muscle you will see, is this sternocleidomastoid coming around. Again, it's wrapping and it's attaching to the mastoid process right in here, and it's wrapping around, again, behind the ear, and it's defining the shape of the neck, and you'll definitely see it from the back side. Alright, now if you notice right in here, I'll go ahead and hide our anatomy. In the center of our trapezius, we have a little bit of a gap in here, especially if the muscle is well developed. You'll see a little bit of a scoop in here in the relaxed pose. But if this man was looking down, it would be kind of smoothed off. This muscle will be flexing and it will be smoothing out the back of the neck. However, this pit will still be visible. Let's examine a couple other cases where we might see this. Alright, so here we have the side view. Again, here we have the 7th vertebrae down, that little bulge right there, smoothly meeting up with the trapezius and wrapping around it. It's kind of smoothing out right in here. But you will see a little bit of a peak right in there. And also the way it kind of folds over the front side, you'll see it's kind of wrapping around, following the same lines. It just wraps over the shoulder. And right here you can see she's relaxing her shoulder, so you'll see a little bit more of it in there. And the clavicle definition will be there, it will be visible. And right at the pit of the neck, we'll find that sternocleidomastoid coming in and defining the side of the neck, again behind the ear. Now, what's interesting is in some people, especially in men, but sometimes you'll find it in women too, they have this little bit of what's called an Adam's apple. It's actually the voice box coming out and it's being exposed a little bit on the surface. Depending on which angle the neck is at, if it's really bent back, you might see it a little bit more, even in women. But especially in men, it might come out even farther. Now in this case, we have an older person. The elderly tend to have looser skin. With age, our skin tends to lose its elasticity, so it tends to droop a little bit more. And you'll see a little bit more of the folds wrapping underneath the neck, and you'll see a lot more shadows in here. But depending on how thin the person is, you might even see the muscle tissue underneath. But mainly, the 3 main muscles are still visible, even in elderly people. And from the back side, if we're turning our head, you'll see that sternocleidomastoid coming right in here, and it's folding up with the chin. The chin's overlapping, and it's causing that little bit of a fold. And here we have the levator scapulae coming down, and it's causing another fold. And then the trapezius comes wrapping around, causing a third fold. So you'll usually see lots of different folds in here, all because that muscle underneath. And again, since her head's being bent back, the muscle is flexing, but you can still see the pit of the neck right here, the 7th vertebrae, kind of peeking out. Alright, so now we have a better understanding of the overall behavior of the neck and the anatomy underneath. Let's go ahead and apply this to our own drawing. We'll start by setting out the form. I'll go ahead and hide what we don't have to see. First, what I like to do to start out any drawing is I like to find the head, the overall shape of the head. A spherical shape to represent it, so we'll go ahead and draw that in. Nice circle. A little bit farther back. I don't want to be too close to the side. Now I like to also draw the center line of the face. Let's kind of find that right in here. We'll have her looking up. And again, the eye line is the next most important thing. But because she's tilting her head up, it'll kind of be coming across like this and wrapping around the head. That'll be our eye line. If we want, we can find the side view of the face, nice oval shape. And matching up with that same eye line, we'll go ahead and tilt it just a little bit more. Make her look a little more in an angle. The chin will follow that same line, that same angle, and be right in there. Alright. Now I like to also, because of the angle, I like to kind of plot out the location of the jawline. And since she's turning her head, it'll be about in the center, not directly in the center, but right about in here will be the corner of the jaw. So let's go ahead and draw that in, meeting up with the chin. And because it's at an angle, we'll see the underside just a little bit, kind of wrapping underneath. Alright, if we wanted to, we can go ahead and draw in the ear. I'll go ahead and kind of move this over just so we can see it better, position it better. Alright, so for the neck, to draw out the simple basic shape to represent the neck, we can think of it as a cylinder. And the cylinder is about half the height of the head. So let's kind of draw in this side really quickly, right about in here, the other side. Kind of think of it as a cylinder wrapping in around the head, around a circular form underneath the head. And on the bottom also, we'll see it kind of at this angle. Might be a little bit long, about in here. It's about half the height of the head again. It's very tempting to make it longer. What you'll see is that the pit of the neck is the clavicle pit. We can go ahead and kind of draw that in. That's the part where the two clavicles meet up with the sternum. And we'll go ahead and draw in the clavicle line so we can get an overall idea of how or what angle our shoulders are going to be resting at. Kind of right about in here, this angle. Alright, kind of lifting the shoulder just a little bit. So now we have our basic form kind of plotted in and the overall positioning of things. We'll go ahead and start building our sketch up from there. I'll go ahead and select our sketch layer. Grab a different color for my brush. I'll grab a different brush and I'll turn down the opacity just a little bit. It doesn't have to be so dark. Alright, and might even be a little too big. Okay. Now, to first start off, we can go ahead and sketch out our head, but we'll go ahead and skip that for now. We're going to focus on just the neck. So the way the head meets up with the neck is it's kind of wrapping around and tucking under, but then the neck kind of comes over because of the levator scapulae kind of coming down. One thing I didn't mention was the levator scapulae actually attaches to 3 different parts of vertebrae in the neck. It actually comes in deeper, so we don't actually see that, but it does attach to the neck, so it will be pretty much defining the overall shape. So we want to keep that in mind. It's kind of tucked in and pulled in close to that area, so we're going to draw that in and right about here. And then we want to secondly draw out the trapezius. Since we understand the overall shape of the neck because of the clavicle direction, we can go ahead and draw that in, kind of scooping down. Again, that part attaches to the second rib, so we'll kind of see that little bit of a fold in there. And it kind of comes up and it meets up with the corner where the deltoid comes over. And on this side, because she's turning her neck, let's just quickly draw in our sternocleidomastoid, kind of coming down behind the ear. We won't see it too much, it'll kind of smooth out because of the bulge in the muscle. We'll kind of see it just deform towards the bottom. Right in here, we'll see a little bit of a definition in there. And on this side, because she's turning her neck, the sternocleidomastoid is also wrapping around and causing that overlapping fold right in here. So we'll go ahead and draw the sternocleidomastoid on the other side, kind of coming in, meeting with the center of the neck, right in there. It's actually coming a little bit farther down, right in there. Alright, and then we'll see the levator scapulae kind of folding down just a little bit, and then the trapezius coming and wrapping over, again, causing that overall shape in the folds of the shoulder. Okay, now underneath the jaw, the way that, we'll go ahead and mark this in really quickly. This is the bottom part of the jaw. The way it's meeting up with the neck, you'll see where the neck meets the underside of the chin, there's a little bit of a gap right in here. Even though there's muscle down there, because of the strain in here, it's pulling and it's causing this little bit of a gap where the void space between the jaw structure is. So go ahead and add the shadow in here. And right about in here you'll see folds in the neck. Go ahead and shade this out just a little bit more. Alright, where it meets up. And again, that muscle right in here where the voice box might be revealed or sticking out. We won't add it into this girl right here, but you will see a little bit of a shadow for men especially right in here. And again, there's a little bit of a void in between the ear, or underneath the ear, in between the sternocleidomastoid and the jaw. So we'll add just a little bit of a shadow following down the neck to add a little bit of a deformation in there. And right behind the sternocleidomastoid we'll come and add this shadow in. Even though the levator scapulae is right here, this is coming over it. So you'll see a little bit of a shadow. Again, there's folds, so we'll go ahead and add different shadows in here to kind of define that muscle. And right here, the biggest part of the gap, we'll go ahead and add that shadow in. Again, it's going to be pretty deep, so it won't be too dark, but it will have a little bit darker tones in there. Alright, so we could continue and add overall more shadows and add definition to the clavicle region, but we'll go ahead and assume that this is the basic sketch for now. So we'll go ahead and hide our form, and we can see already we have quite a successful looking neck. Now we can continue to add different shadows and highlights to further define the neck and our face, but as you can see, by understanding the behavior of the neck, we can draw our neck out in any position more successfully.